it's kind of a heavy topic right now because it's being talked about everywhere we go. And that is in regards to clear collaboration in action, the Compass-Redfin deal. So if you're not familiar with this, I'll just summarize this. And this is by Inman. It's an article by them. This is an agreement that Compass made with Redfin regarding off-market listings. And basically what happens is Redfin or Compass has a kind of a system that basically says, if you keep your property off market, we'll market it inside of our Compass websites, and people can see it that way through internal, networking and that kind of stuff. For sellers that decide to not put it on the market. Now, this can be a contentious arguments on both sides. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds here. You can go back and watch some other live streams, but there's arguments to be had on both sides. One side says, like Zillow's side, and they'll say, look, we need the data because it's important for everybody to know what's going on with that property. It helps the buyers, helps the consumers. And really the best thing for the seller is that it goes out everywhere. So that way they have the best chance of selling their property. Compass's argument and a lot of other brokerages' argument is seller choice. It really just comes down to that. We want to be able to go in and talk to our sellers and give them as many options as possible and help them navigate through that and discuss benefits, pros, and cons of both. Now, I would say, that there's on Compass's side, there's an argument to be had there where they're talking about giving the ability for a seller that maybe wants to stay more private, but yet still put out as many eyes as possible on the property without being forced to put it on the MLS and syndicate everywhere. So maybe more limited amount of exposure and giving that as an option to a seller. And that's kind of where we're landing at. And this is where this is kind of shaking up. So I'm going to read this article and then I'm going to talk about what NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has said kind of in response to the Compass and Redfin deal. Now, they didn't directly respond to Compass and Redfin just because they don't weigh into what other brokerages do. And that's a good move by NAR because that could get them into trouble, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. And in this headline too, this is clear collaboration in action, what the Compass-Redfin deal gets right. And the subheading is, the deal is a move toward a more flexible, consumer-centric model. All right, so this is, and we'll just put into the whole understanding here, this is an article that is considered an opinion piece. So this is some research, but it's based on someone's opinion. But it's worth us having this discussion because it could affect all of us in long-term situations. This article was written by, Jason Haber, and he is an associate broker at Compass in New York and co-founder of the American Real Estate Association. So to note, this is where we got to make a note here. This is somebody that is associated with Compass, giving an opinion about this. Now, you might disagree with Compass altogether. You might say, I think what Compass is doing is great. Just know that we're reading an article that is an opinion piece. All right? Here's where it begins. It says, when the American Real Estate Association introduced our clear collaboration proposal last year, we weren't just proposing a policy tweak. We were starting a national conversation about breaking from the dogmas and legacy systems that have long constrained our industry. The response told us we hit a nerve. 30,000 agents have now joined ARA, and the debate over seller choice versus platform control has moved from the margins to the mainstream. Now comes the Compass Rocket Redfin partnership, a deal that champions the very principles we've been advocating. Expanded seller choice on where, when, and how their home is listed, while sharing that information with real estate professionals rather than keeping it siloed. So there's a lot to kind of say inside of this, but they did strike a nerve. There was an amount of control that was going on by the portals out there, Zillow, Redfin, and even Realtor.com even, and sometimes NAR, they've actually relaxed a lot on the rules and their policies as far as what brokers do, and we'll get to that. But that's the thing, is like they did strike a nerve. And we're talking about consumer choice and seller choice here. And does a portal or an association have the right to dictate how brokerages operate and confine them into operating with the way they say that needs to be done? So you got to understand that the basic foundation of this entire position is a little bit of a pushback against another entity saying, we are going to force you to do the way we want you to do it. Okay, so that's the foundation of this. Now, when you start getting into the weeds of this, there's all kind of nuances as far as like pros and cons, but that's the foundation. That's the pushback. It's like, wait, we're our own independent brokerage. We are ourselves, right? Compass is like, look, who are you to say that we have to do certain things your way, right? And that's where the pushback kind of came from. So just that's the foundation of this whole entire thing.